Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Richard, and welcome back to the Stock Market Outlook video sponsored by MarketSmith. First things first, I want to wish everybody a happy holiday season. I hope you guys are having a great time with your families and friends, and have had a nice break from the markets the past few days. With that said, we're going to go ahead and dive right into this video where we'll cover the market indexes, big cap stocks, as well as a few that are standing out to me. And at the end of the video, I'll give you my overall take on the health and breadth of the market. And throughout this video, if you do find this helpful and enjoy my analysis, please go ahead and take the time to leave me a like down below on this video, and also comment what you think about the market as well. That helps push this video in terms of the YouTube algorithm, and say that's a good resource for people and upcoming traders. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive right in and start with the NASDAQ composite. So first things first, we've been in a long-term bear market for the past year now. We're back below a declining 2150 SMA and 200 SMA. So in terms of all those different trends, we are in a downtrend. Now we are coming back into a potential area of support where it's been support in the past. So that's just an area to watch. We'll have to see how ranges build versus that level, as well as how individual stocks and leadership act as well. Now on Friday, or on Thursday here, the 23rd, we did have an inside day where all the day's action was contained within this previous bar, which was an expectation breaker, because you can see this day and this day we were pushing higher. Then we had a gap down, negative action here, and now just an inside day. So from here, we can either move one or two ways, through its high or through its low, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But in the context of the trend, likely we move a little bit higher, or sorry, a little bit lower, because we are in a short-term downtrend. So the most logical spot here would be us to push through this level to the downside. Let's go over to a 60-minute chart. You can see what I mean. We have this downtrend here, a short-term rally, potential wedge here, and we could see it either break this way or break out through this high, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens. If it does move up higher, I would expect some range building versus this 10,753 level, and for it to just kind of continue to build sideways and form out a range, and then we'll have to see what happens. But for the time being, we don't know how it's going to resolve itself, and we just have to wait and see what actually happens. Looking at the weekly chart, let's go over to that. You can see we remain within this longer term bear market. This is a key level to watch the downside. If we do end up breaking these lows, as well as the 10,000 level, that's also an area of interest. And you can see that this recent negative action started with a poor close in this day, the gap up right to the top of the range, and then very negative downside reversal on the weekly, which I talked about in last week's video. And then we're resolving to the downside again. And maybe we're short term extended to the downside, but that also just means that we are in a downtrend. And right now we're back below all the key moving averages, and just kind of in no man's land for a lot of people who are swing traders or day traders, or position traders, unless you're acting towards the short side. So that's pretty much it from a multi-time frame perspective on the NASDAQ composite. This has been the lagging index. Here you can see it's underperforming the S&P 500, and the Dow has actually been the leading one, which isn't, doesn't give me too much confidence, because a lot of people like to hide in the Dow when the tech stocks aren't doing too well and growth in general is under pressure. So we want to see that kind of switch a little bit, and I'd love to see the NASDAQ lead on the next potential rally upward. But we have to break back above these moving averages, as well as the longer term moving average, before we can really say that we're in a new super strong uptrend, and leadership also has to be there with multiple leadership groups acting well. So with that said, let's move on over to the S&P 500. Very similar look, maybe a little bit stronger here. You can see we're a lot further from these prior lows. And let's go over to a daily chart. You can see very similar action inside day, a little bit stronger, but we're still below that 21 EMA, 200 SMA, and below increasing 50 SMA. So this is holding up above these lows a lot better than the NASDAQ, but it remains to be seen once again, where do we go after we move out of this range? We'll just have to wait and see. Looking at the IWM, this gives you a sense of what small caps are doing. You can see it wasn't quite an inside day here on Friday, but very similar action, just kind of chopping up and down here, and below all the key moving averages. RS is not super strong, and we're still having trouble with this 200 SMA, as well as the descending trend line if you draw that from the top. So this is going to be a big area of interest, and we'll have to see where we go from this point. Looking at the Russell 2000 Growth Index, this is very similar. Testing this prior area, you can see there's a potential spot for support, but we'll have to see what happens once again as we move out from this range. Looking at the FFTY, This has been absolutely decimated, making new lows here, trying to rally a little bit, but you can see, it's all squished down here for a reason. We're in a pretty bad downtrend at this moment, and pretty similar with the ARK fund, just making new lows here. So in terms of, growth stocks and risk appetite, there's not too much just yet. There are some leaders that are holding up better than the indexes as of this moment, but we'll have to see whether that RS is just kind of indicating that they'll be the last to fall from this previous rally, or if they're really going to be the new leadership going forward. They have to hold up above their moving averages. And I would say, a great scan for last week is, did you have a weekly closing range over 40%? So did you close within the upper 60% of that weekly bar? That's what that means. That means you were supported off the lows. And then another great scan would just be above a rising 21 EMA or rising 50 SMA. That helps you kind of easily see that strength. And of course, you want to be, within 25% of 52-week highs. That's another scan that you could run. So there's a lot of ways to look for all the strength. And I've got a few videos on my channel showing how to do just that during a market correction. So go ahead and check those out, and subscribe if this video has been helpful so far. So with that said, let's go on over to the mega caps. Let's go ahead and start with Tesla. This has gotten hit very hard, just in a negative downtrend. And I've been covering this for quite some time, and I've said, during this move down, we're in a downtrend. We're below declining 21, 50, 200 SMA, and you might feel like you're extended to the downside here. You get a rally, then it just reconfirms, and the strongest up moves in the model book stocks respect that 21 EMA and bounce off it as it's making moves higher, higher highs, higher lows. And this is the exact opposite. This is a strong downtrend where to the downside, you can see that this has been resistance, and we're not even making it to that 50 SMA. So eventually we will have a more significant basing period where maybe we get to that 50 SMA or even break above it. But for the most part, this is in a strong downtrend. And even if we do break above that 50 SMA in the short term, really to start a new strong move up here, and for this to lead again, we have to be above a rising 200 SMA. So a lot of work to do from this name, Tesla. Once again, definitely, extended to the downside. That just could mean that we could have sharp rallies into that 21 EMA. But the trend is down on all time frames with the stock. The RS rating is a 6. This is not a leader anymore, despite what you might think about the company, the fundamentals. The price action is telling you all you need to know as of this moment. Moving on, we've got Google. A little bit stronger here, but still within, below all those key moving averages, below that declining 200 SMA. We're holding above this low, which is good, but we'll have to see what happens. Then it's very market dependent as well. Looking at Apple, this is, undercutting these lows. Once again, not a great look. Extend to the downside, so we'll have to see what happens in this chop. But RS rating 28. This is not a great looking chart here, below all the key moving averages, below the declining 21 EMA, 50 SMA, and 200 SMA. Bringing up Netflix. Has been a little bit stronger than most of them, rallying after this, strong gap down. I've enjoyed some Wednesday and some of the shows that they've been bringing out. The Recruit is good as well. So they're still producing that excellent content, and we'll have to see if the price action can match that strength. But we did have a gap down and kind of hold here, and we're above that 50 SMA, just below that 21 EMA. But we'll have to see if that 200 SMA can kind of curl up under price, and this can really start a new stage 2 uptrend. Moving on, we've got Amazon. And you can see that this is just very negative, below all the key moving averages. Once again, that 21 EMA is acting as resistance. So there's a very strong downtrend, and we're also below a declining 50 and 200 SMA. So in terms of the mega caps, very negative look, and that's why the indexes are kind of getting dragged down. But the weakness in these stocks can kind of hide strength in other areas, because the indexes won't give the full picture, and we'll basically have to try to look for those relative strength leaders that are holding up better than the market. And even if we're not trading them, we just got to note that RS and be ready if we do see an opportunity and see breadth improve, see the market improve, and kind of lift off its lows. So with that, let's move on to a few more names. We've got NVIDIA. Semiconductors were acting better than most, but you can see a downside reversal here after a failed breakout near that 200 SMA, negative action, and we're in a short-term down cycle below that 21 EMA, right at that 50 SMA. So we'll have to see whether it can find support here as well as the 150 level. But still has a lot of work to do, and I think it's going to have to kind of base below the 190 area, 192, 196, and then have a strong breakout to really restart a stage 2 uptrend, but we'll have to see what happens. AMD as well. This was acting all right, but now it's definitely weaker, and you can see it wasn't even able to rally above that 200 SMA. So yeah, nothing much to see from these mega caps as well, or just big caps here. And yeah, we'll have to wait and see whether the semiconductors can really come alive. Once again, just bring up the overall semiconductor ETF. You can see that this is very similar to the NVIDIA chart, rejected at that 200 SMA. So with that said, there are a few names that catch my eye, and I'll make a video later today as well highlighting these relative strength leaders. TMDX holding above that 21 EMA, above a rising 50 SMA, 200 SMA. RS rating is 99. So if you're looking for potential leaders, this is what you're looking for. You're not looking for stuff that's 75%, 80%, 90% off its lows. Those can have good bounces that are potentially tradable depending on your skill level and edges and entry tactics. But in terms of the names that are going to potentially lead, we're looking for these just as the market is coming off its lows, as these are forming proper bases and breaking out on extremely large volume. So TMDX is acting well. CLH is in a short-term down cycle, but building a range here versus this prior pivot area. So I want to see this hold as well as 100, and for it to kind of pop back above that 21 EMA, but a decent looking base here. And over on the weekly chart, you can see that, you know, it's right near all-time highs. We did have failed breakouts here on this day and this day, or this week and this week, but we're holding above that 10-week for the time being, and we'll just have to see what happens. FSLR, bringing up that chart, acting well, holding above that 10-week moving average. Going over to the daily, this corresponds to it holding above that 50 SMA. Nice response versus that level on this day. So once again, just a stock that's acting better than the market as in this moment. RS rating is a strong 99. Also bring up ALNY. This is a little bit choppy, but forming out a base here after a long gap up, or a really strong gap up here, and holding above that 21 EMA. So once again, a scan of stocks holding above the 21 EMA, you know, that simple will probably give you a great group of stocks to have on your radar. So that's pretty much it for this video. Going back to the market indexes, we did see a lot of distribution come into, you know, the market as well as the leading stocks over the past 2 weeks during this period as we broke below the moving averages. And we're just kind of playing that wait and see game once again. Will we kind of form up here, have enough leadership to start a rally, or are we going to continue to break down and challenge these previous lows? No one knows what's going to happen. We just have to kind of wait and see, and basically have a plan going either way. So potentially extend into the downside here, but we are within the context of a short-term downtrend. So maybe we just chop sideways and then resolve to the downside, or resolve to the upside. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, that's pretty much it from me for this video. Let me know your thoughts on the market down below. I'd love to hear what you think. And if you stayed all the way until the end, message Merry Christmas down below in the comment section. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your time off from the market, and we'll see you guys next week. Best of luck, and I'll see you guys in future videos. Take care.